This week on London Real, we welcome back the professional bodybuilder and six-time Mr. Olympia, Dorian Yates.
Bodybuilding was so individual. It was just all down to me, win or lose, and that was the appeal. They say don't put all your eggs in one basket, but I only had one egg, one basket. Because it's not possible. It's not possible to be training harder or more consistently or more dedicated than me, because I couldn't give a single ounce more to any aspect of this thing that I'm doing. So that makes me feel pretty powerful and pretty confident. One consciousness, having billions of different experiences at the same time. There's no point kind of fighting with people and getting angry, because it's just like you're fighting with yourself. I trudged through that snow up past my knees to the gym, and I thought to myself, you know what, those fuckers in California right now, they're driving their Porsche, their Ferrari out in the sun, going to the beach. I'm here trudging through the snow, and they're gonna pay for that.
London Real presents Dorian Yates, Return of the Shadow.
We're all drops in the ocean, you know, so to change the ocean, I can only concentrate on this drop.
London Real Academy. Build the best you.
When I go in and look at a person or a business, I want to hear him talk about his dreams.
Am I living in alignment to the way I want to be living? And there's a feeling you get if you're not.
A community of action-oriented people that will keep you accountable to your goals. Sign up now for a free 30-day trial. London Real, sponsored by Bulletproof. This week on the show, we welcome back the most watched guest on London Real of all time. Yes, that is Dorian Yates, the six-time Mr. Olympia, bodybuilder from the UK. It was such a pleasure to sit down with Dorian for almost 3 hours and really find out who he's been and who he's become over the last 2.5 years. This man grows, he constantly explores, and he really seems like a different person. Perhaps I'm a different person as well, and I guess London Real is too. So I really hope you enjoy the time I re-spent with Dorian. It was just really an honor sitting down with him. He is one of Britain's greatest sportsmen, and you know, one day we'll be recognized as that by the rest of the country, I'm sure. And until then, we just have the pleasure of hearing his thoughts about his time competing, about his time after competition, and just his theory of the world. You know, the biggest takeaway from me was about vibrations, and Dorian said in this interview that when he's giving off good vibrations, then amazing things happen to him. And so I've been inspired to really work on my own vibrations. So I hope you can take that lesson from Dorian and learn a bit about that and everything about the man himself. So a real honor having him back, and I really hope you enjoy this episode. And I'm going to make this one quick, but if you haven't already, please check out the London Real Academy. We are 700 members strong around the world, and if you join, then you'll find your future friends, your peers, your mentors, your investors. And I've just been blown away by the amount of positive energy, the incredible people that are here. I just spent some time in San Francisco and met 20 people for an amazing evening of focus group and just general positive information and emotions all around. So please join the Academy, come by London Real Studios for a focus group, get an accountability buddy, join us in our webinars, watch our special events with Dan Pena, Phil McKernan, the list goes on. So please give it a trial, 30 days free. It's really just all awesomeness. I hope to see you there. And for now, I leave you with the one and only Mr. Dorian Yates. London Real Set Design by Timothy Olton. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Dorian Yates, who is an English professional bodybuilder who won the Mr. Olympia title 6 consecutive times from 1992 to 1997 and holds the 4th highest number of Mr. Olympia awards of all time. You are widely considered to be one of the top athletes in modern bodybuilding history. Dorian, welcome back to London Real.
Thanks for having me back. And 2.5 years later, and who knew the impact that show was going to have when I just walked in here one day and we sat down and we just started talking. Huge impact.
Huge. I pulled out a tweet that you sent out on January 3rd. It was a few days before you were going to come in, and you had wrote, "Guys, I'm on London Real TV and I'm going to pull no punches." And I remember getting that a few days before, and I was just like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I was very excited. But
well, it was an opportunity for me to talk about and answer questions on a whole wide variety of subjects that normally wouldn't get asked, because everybody wants to ask me about my profession and my achievements in the sport and so on, which is great. But we went on a whole wide range of subjects, and a lot of that resonated with people, apparently. You know, it touched them, something in them, and they were very interested in what I had to say on a lot of subjects.
Yeah,
and the feedback was massive, even like from different podcasts and websites, and a lot of people got in touch with me, wanting me to, you know, to elaborate further and to speak on those subjects and everything. And I didn't really take up any of those opportunities because I didn't want to water down what I said. But I did meet a lot of people through that, you know, through the London Real that I probably wouldn't have met. I had a guy that got in touch with me about meditation and sent me a lot of meditation tapes and things like that I was kind of getting interested in. So it helped me along in my path as well. Some people came out of the woodwork and got in touch with me.
Over 2 million people watched that on YouTube. It's our most watched episode ever.
Yeah, it's amazing. And a lot of people apparently that were not maybe directly from bodybuilding, or, you know, were not listening just because that I was a bodybuilder. So we reached a really wide audience.
Yeah,
I was saying to you earlier on, a couple of times I've been stopped in the street and it's like, "Hey, you're that, not Mr. Olympia, you're that guy from London Real. You're the guy that talked about the ayahuasca and everything. Man, that was cool, I like that." Yeah, so great.
Yeah, and I get stopped too. You're the guy that interviewed Dorian Yates. And neither one of us thought that was going to happen that day. We just came together.
No, it was just like, let's see where this talk goes. There was no real format of what we were going to talk about. So we went to some interesting places.
Yeah, definitely. And with people with you, it's not the bodybuilding that interests them as much. It was probably more of you talking about just being a human and being spiritual, right? Well,
you know, if you do something, a profession or a sport or whatever, that doesn't define you. That's not the whole of you, you know, surely, or it shouldn't be anyway. But obviously people want to know about that because that's a huge part of my life that I did, you know, and it got me to a position where people listen to what I say.
Right.
So I'm trying to say something interesting and important.
And why at that time, like 2.5 years ago, did you feel like talking about those things? Because you didn't, in the past, you didn't do a lot of media.
I didn't. Not really like a media, you know, I don't really like to push myself out there. That's not my way. And most of the media that I did, you know, it depends on what they want to talk about. I mean, most of the media is from a sporting point of view. They want to know about my training, they want to know about nutrition. They want to know about the psychology and the mental side and the discipline of how I achieved what I did in the sport, which is great. So I don't usually get asked questions outside of that box much, but obviously I've got opinions on a lot of subjects and an interest in life. So it was good that we touched on some of those things.
Yeah, and I want to kind of get back to a few of those topics. I must thank you because after you spoke about DMT that day, I made a resolution to do a show about DMT, and it's one now that
Yeah, I haven't watched that yet.
It's one now that some people say you should never have done, and but it's one of the most popular shows as well. But I did a before and after DMT episode.
Well, we were talking about that when I came,
Yeah.
almost like, listen, one time we'll come and we'll do this on the show so we can talk about it. So I guess you went ahead and did it without me.
Yeah, well, because you were like, well, we should definitely do some DMT
Yeah,
together,
yeah.
and I think it planted the seed, and so I think, yeah, I just went ahead and did it, and so we did a before and after episode, and I had never done it before, and I talked about my thoughts, my concerns, and then afterwards what it was like as an experience.
And you did the experience and then you filmed afterwards.
Yeah, right afterwards. So not during, obviously, but just before and after, and it really resonated.
Did you find it like a so important episode in your life? Has something changed afterwards, or you made some different realizations?
I had had 3 ayahuasca ceremonies before that, and so I had already had some experience, with a real heavy, obviously a DMT compound in a different form.
Yeah.
So I found this one different. I know you found it very powerful. I found my ayahuasca seemed to be more memorable for me, but I only did it that once. But it was still very evident to me that there is obviously another plane. There are a lot of other things going on that we don't know about, and you get there in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, what I got is this is an experience that we're having, and it's based on information from the 5 senses, and that builds your experience. But there's a whole lot outside of that, 5 senses, that's accessible to people. And DMT is or ayahuasca is like a quick route to get there and have a look. But a lot of people do get to that same kind of place with different methods, meditation, chanting. Every culture had its different things. The American Indians used to have the sweat lodge, that would get them into that kind of a... Basically, I see it as changing your vibration. Your vibration changes, and just like a radio station, you can turn the dial and you can go from radio 1 to radio 2 and classical FM or whatever. We could access them all in this room. Thousands of radio stations, we access them all in this same space here. So they're all here at the same time, but it's just tuned into one or the other.
Right. And what we experience, as you said last time, is just such a minute slice of what's happening out there.
Absolutely, exactly. What we're aware of, what we perceive through those senses is just information.
And I remember that picture we took with your tattoo that says "One Love, One Heart." You were saying with your DMT experience that you really kind of noticed that we are all one, and one is everyone.
Yeah, it's like one consciousness having billions of different experiences at the same time, but it's coming from the same source. So once you come to that realization, then there's no point kind of fighting with people and getting angry, because it's just like you're fighting with yourself, but you're in a different place, That's the way I see it.
Did you always have that feeling when you were Mr. Olympia, or did it take kind of after that, getting out of it and then thinking about the world, or did you always feel very connected?
Well, there's a spiritual aspect to training and to sport. As an athlete, you almost go to some places or zones or something, almost you shift a little bit under extreme stress and pain. Sometimes it just kind of melts away and you go to a different place. Happened to me the first time I did that was when I was a kid, and I was at school and we had this charity run. It was run around the track, run around the 400-meter track. And I was always like bragging like I'm a good runner, I can run far and everything. Then it came to this day that we were going to run around this track. And I remember I went around the houses and like, can you sponsor me for I think it was for a minibus for school or something like this, It wasn't the point of why I was doing it. It was just a challenge, So I go around all the neighbors, can you sponsor me, like whatever it was at the time, 5 pence a lap or something for the minute. Oh yeah, so they all signed up on this thing, yeah. And there was one of my friends who was a boxer, and he was like a lightweight, so he could just run all day, and his whole family were boxers, and they used to go running every night. And I was, telling him, I can do more than you, whatever. So we all started running. After about 15 or 20 times round the track, I was dying, and there was just me and him left. I was like, I'm not going to give in, I'm not going to give in. And then for some reason, he dropped out and I kept going. And I remember just going through something where I just didn't feel anything anymore. And I was just going round the track. I think 45 laps. Everyone had gone home except for me and the teacher that was observing how many laps I was doing. And I remember it being the huge thing at the time. FA Cup final was the big soccer final every year. And it was that day, the FA Cup final was on. It was starting at 3 o'clock. They said, you've got to stop because I got to go home and watch the FA Cup final. So you need to stop. And then I went back later in the week to all these poor people that signed up 5 pence a lap who expect me, oh, you're going to do 5 or 6 laps or something. That's all right. Gone back like 45 laps and they got to cough up the money. So I learned something earlier on that you can go into a zone. So as an athlete, you do learn. There's a spiritual side to the training and to the discipline. So I already connected to that through the sport, I think. But when I retired, was a lot of turmoil in my life, you know, because I've been totally focused on this one thing, like in a tunnel for many years, and everything else I kind of neglected or swept under the carpet, or, you know, it was not a priority. I had to be in this tunnel. So when you retire from that kind of tunnel vision in a sport, it's pretty traumatic. A lot of athletes go through this, and a lot of athletes lose their way because they've had this focus and they're, you know, all consuming, and now it's not there anymore. Now, who am I? What do I do? All these questions came up, and
the world doesn't need me anymore.
Yeah, a lot of things I came up. I got divorced from my wife, and a whole lot of things changed, and it just made me question everything and a lot of things, and that's where I started looking more actively into the spiritual side of life and religions, and well, trying to make some sense of it, you know. And so it just carried on from there, being more curious. Where before I was just, you know, I was buried in this tunnel, doing like a lot of people are. Most people live in a tunnel, you know, go to work, come back, you know, and not really having time to look up or to think about these things.
You mentioned your childhood. I was wondering if you could tell us where you grew up and what your childhood was like.
I grew up, first of all, I was born in Solihull, which is a suburb of Birmingham. Okay. I think we lived there until I was about 3 or 4, because my dad worked at the Rover car plant that was in Solihull. Okay. And then we moved to what's called a small holding. It's basically like a little small farm, more out, away from the city, like 20, 25 miles. And I think initially my parents was a chicken farm. They wanted, but I guess it didn't work out, so they sold all the chickens. And my mom then was doing horse riding, instructing. We had a few old horses, and all the local kids used to come horse riding lessons and stuff like that. So we had horses, we had dogs. I had some ducks. The whole place was full of animals. So it's kind of cool, I guess. You know, I had a lot of space to run around. My friends lived a couple of miles away, so either you were walking, running, or riding a bike all day outside, so kind of healthy lifestyle. But my dad had a heart attack when I was about 13. He was only 42 years old, and boom. So that was a huge, huge change in my life. Shortly after that, my mum met somebody else, and we moved to Birmingham together. And tragically, I think it was less than a year later, her new husband-to-be had a heart attack as well. Wow. So yeah, there I was in Birmingham. And my mum was more like a country person. She loved horse riding and all that kind of stuff. So she was stuck in Birmingham then when her new partner died. And when I got to 16, she was basically, I don't want to stay here. I'm moving back out into the country. So what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'm staying here now. So right. At 16, I left home and went to crash on my friend's couch, and, you know.
How did your father's death make you feel?
I mean, at the time, it had a huge impact on my life, but I can see that now. At the time, it's just very confusing. And at 13, you know, you're just coming into puberty, and it's like my dad was teaching me to drive the car around the fields and stuff, you know, stuff like that, you know, that your dad does, right? Your dad teaches you to drive, dad teaches you how to be a man, and now all of a sudden that guy's not there anymore. So who's going to do these things with me? Who's going to teach? So that was my immediate, you know, kind of, maybe I was in shock, but just practical
Were you angry?
I was angry that my mom was going to marry somebody like very quickly, straight afterwards, and move me out of the place that I was, you know, comfortable with, my friends, environment, and everything. So, yeah, I was pretty pissed off about that.
So when I was 7 years old, my parent got divorced, and I think I got angry. I got angry at the whole world because it was like all the love structure that was set up was just ripped apart, and so I couldn't trust anyone or anything else, and I just
Well, we don't have like what you would call a typical very close family unit. Anyway, my mum and dad, I think they just kind of tolerated each other, and they had a child together. We never went on a family dinner together. We never went on a holiday, you know. So there wasn't real close family structure. But anyway, I had my dad, I had a mum, you know, and then my dad wasn't there anymore. So, you know, I stopped really giving a shit at school and these kind of things. I wasn't, you know, I was just less interested. I guess now I can look back and see that.
Right. So at 16, I think you've once said you were either a skinhead, a punk, or a mod.
Yeah, that was just at the times, you know, if you want to go out and be on the scene and go to all the concerts, it's like one of those things, yeah. So actually, I think me and my friends were like, we bought some mod suits and stuff first, you know. We went to a few mod things and we were like, nah, let's shave our heads and let's get into the skinhead scene, you know. So, yeah, I was there 2 years of my life, 2 summers really, that, you know, we were going to concerts and dressing like that and everything until I went to jail for a little bit, and then I came out and the fashions changed and I didn't. So it's just, you know, people make a big issue out of it because there's pictures of me of a teenager, a skinhead and everything, and, you know, it's part of the story that I came from that. I was able to be the best bodybuilder in the world from that start. You know, I had nothing, literally nothing.
Right.
I even when I started bodybuilding, financially I had nothing. Even when I was British champion, I remember I was still catching the bus to the gym and back to work, and hey, we've got the British champion trophy at home, but, you know, no TV crews outside the house, no sponsorship checks, nothing pretty much changed really, you know.
Yeah. What happened in 1981? You were sentenced to 6 months at Watton Youth Detention Center. How did that happen? And in retrospect, was that a good thing in any way?
Really, I shouldn't have been there. I mean, I didn't do anything much to deserve to be in there, just apart from being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
There was some like riot vandalism.
Yeah, there was a lot of riots on the streets in the 81 in the summer. It was like started in, I think, Brixton and in Bristol, all the West Indian, Jamaican communities, basically.
Okay.
So Birmingham was one of them as well. We weren't involved. We were just actually going to a party from one side of Birmingham to the other side, so we had to go through the city centre and change night buses or something, and being already half drunk, and actually like we look at all these shop windows are like all the glasses out and all the dummies are just there, and, you know, we kind of forgot what had gone on in the daytime because we weren't involved in it, half drunk, and my friends like, look at this, let's take some of these hats. And it wasn't even something we wanted, it was just like stupid, we're going to walk in a party with these hats on and these coats that just, you know, from this nerdy shop, right? That was his idea. So he pulled one of the mannequins and it came down, but it took all the rest of the glass out, made a big noise, and the place must have been crawling with police, obviously. So within about 20 seconds, there was like 20 police on top of us, and we got put in the jail cells for about 3 days. I remember there's no toilets, no showers, because they arrested so many people on that weekend that they had nowhere to put them, you know. So we're stuck in there, which was horrible, for 3 days. And then we got sentenced 6 months apiece to go to detention center, which is young offenders. I don't know if they have them anymore, but the idea was put these guys in there and give them like a military regime. So you're going to wear a uniform, you're going to wear a tie, you get up in the morning, you go to the yard and you do square bashing, you do like military, marching around, and then you go to your works where you learn some kind of skill, hopefully, or you do some physical training. So all day you're doing something, not just sitting around. They're trying to, like, the idea was, I think it was Margaret Thatcher's going from a short, sharp shop, like, you know, shop these guys into, like, you know, being nice, responsible members of society. In a way, it worked for me, because when I was in there, I was like, I don't ever want to be in this situation again. You know, I came from a freeholding a farm, running around with animals, and I'm always very independent, doing my own thing. Now you're like a number, and you go and you do what you're told, and you're a number, and you're not, you know. I was like, I don't want to be in this situation again.
Did you overhear a conversation between one of the guards and
Yeah, I did. It's something that stuck in my mind, and I even know the guy that said it. I still see him sometimes, and his future came true, and so did mine. Because the officer said to him, like, you better change your attitude, otherwise you're going to be in and out of jail the rest of your life. And the guy just looked at him and said, I don't give a fuck. I was thinking, oh, I do. Like, I don't ever want to be in here again if I can avoid it. And because we had the weights in there, and I'd done a little bit before, and I had a better physique than pretty much all the guys in there, and I was stronger, and the circuit training, I was faster, I was fitter. And even the prison officers that were running the PT, they're like, Yates, you know, when you get out, one of the guys wrote me a gym down in Birmingham, I should go to this gym. His friend had a powerlifting gym. Well, I didn't want to be a powerlifter, I wanted to be a bodybuilder. But it was a point of realization that, like, you know, this is not your path, this is not your life, you know, and this, you can see that you're good at this, so let's do this. And then I started doing it and getting, you know, results very quickly. Then I started thinking about, I want to compete, and, you know, maybe one day I'd like to be a British champion. That's pretty much where I was when I started, you know.
And you saw that early bit of success, and that made you think, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, because you got 300 guys in there, so you've got a cross section of people, and I could see that I had more natural potential for building a physique or a strength for lifting weights than, you know, 298 of these guys or whatever, you know. So here's something that I really enjoy doing, and I'm actually pretty good at it. I got something to work with here, and that's pretty much all I did have to work with, because I didn't pay attention at school. I'd say I'm reasonably intelligent, probably more than average, but I wasn't interested in what they were, you know, I wasn't interested in the whole regime, and now I can see how correct I was. Because it's not education, it's just indoctrination. It's just teaching to be there at 9 and leave at 4, and it's teaching to wear a tie, and it's teaching you to, like, you know, to be a part of this machine. And I never felt comfortable with it, and I don't think a lot of people that was at school, they're like, something's wrong here. Like, why are we spending so much time learning so much useless information? You know, what did I learn at school? Learn to write, read, and some basic mathematics. Those are the only things that I've learned at school that's been of any use to me in life, you know. Most of the time was just wasted, like locking these kids in 8 hours a day inside a classroom and getting them used to that. It's not natural. And then they say, all right, here's some homework to take home with you. So we're going to stick you here for 8 hours. Now when you go home, when it's to sit in a room and do this bullshit for another 2 hours. And I never, ever did any homework, and got in trouble for a lot of time, but I just was like, I'm not doing it, you know. I'll do my best while I'm here. I don't really want to be here, but when I leave, I'm going to do what I want to do, you know. Right.
So you left the detention center, and is that when you moved into Casa Vale, which is tower blocks in Birmingham?
Yeah, well, first of all, I moved out to a friend's place, and I was just living on the couch, and the house was quite crowded, and she had 2 young babies and stuff like that. So the council came out, and I'm sure a single man wouldn't get a council flat these days, you know, but then it was different. I did get a flat in one of the least desirable addresses, I think, for most people. For me, I was happy to get that apartment because it was near to where a lot of my friends lived and stuff like that. So yeah, Castle Vale's changed a lot. Actually, the high-rise blocks that they built in the 60s, they've all been knocked down now. Okay. But that's where I was, living on Castle Vale for about, I think 4 or 5 years I was living there. And as I said at the first, no, just catching the bus. I probably spent 2 or 3 hours a day on the bus, going to work, going to the gym, going to my girlfriends and all stuff like that.
And at this point you were learning, right? You wanted to learn about nutrition, but you were dedicated. You had a goal.
I studied a lot before I started, because I'm like, before I started, I'm like, this is a mission. I'm not starting casually. When I got out of the detention center, I knew I had to find a job. I knew I needed an apartment. I needed these things before I could go to the gym. Otherwise, you know, I need stability. So I got these things secured. And then during that process, I was reading as much as I could, magazines, books. I've probably got every bodybuilding magazine and book that's been published in between 1980 and 95, and even a lot more before that, because people could see that I was collecting, and people used to give me their old Iron Man magazines and things like that. I had a huge collection, which unfortunately got damaged in storage and stuff like that. But I just absorbed all this information and then started sorting out and what worked and what didn't work, what's made sense and what didn't make sense. And having goals. I've got every workout I ever did from 1983 until 1997. I've got every workout written down. I've got every exercise, every rep, every weight, everything written down. I've got a stack of books like that, all handwritten. I've got all my diets in there. Everything is logged down. And I was doing this, and I taught myself to do this. And every month I would write, this is my weight, this is my bicep measurement, this is my waist, this is it, this is my maximum bench press. And then I have all these next month. My goal is 10 pounds increase on the bench press. Oh, that doesn't sound much. Yeah, but if I did it every month for 12 months, it'd be 120 pounds, it'd be massive. So I always broke it down into little achievable goals like that, which I didn't always achieve, but I had the goal to aim for, and, you know, constantly going forward. So I kept records, and if I changed something in my diet, I changed something in my training, I would put it down, and I'd change one thing at a time. And then let's see for a month what effect this has, positive or negative. And then whatever it was, if it was positive, I'd keep it. If it was negative, I wouldn't agonize about the whys. And even, you know, if I read somewhere Arnold Schwarzenegger said this exercise is the greatest thing, but I'm doing it, it's not working, I would just simply eliminate it and move on. I wouldn't wonder why. It's not, waste energy on that, you know. So very meticulous in my planning and very analytical about the whole process.
Like a
you know?
scientist. This is a
it was my own
method.
science cross between a science experiment, a sport, and an art. It's like the whole thing combined, and because it was so individual. I think we were having a conversation earlier on, and I said it's great to hear my daughter. I think she was 13 at the time, when she said to me, "Dad, I'm growing up too quick. I don't want to grow up. I just want to stay a kid." I'm like, "Why is that then?" She's like, "Yeah, because when you're a kid, you just have fun. There's no responsibility. There's no paying the bills. And I just want to, it's great. I just want to stay like this." And I thought to myself, that's lovely that she feels like that. Because when I was at that age, I just wanted to get the hell out of there. I wanted to grow up and be able to be responsible for my own life. Because these people that are supposed to be looking after me, they're screwing up. That's the way I thought anyway. So bodybuilding was so individual for me. I had to study the nutrition. I had to do the training. I had to find out how it worked with my body. There were no teammates. There were no family. There was nobody to let me down. It was just all down to me, win or lose. And that was the appeal about bodybuilding for me. I was almost psychologically just perfectly built for it, perhaps,
Yeah, mentally.
Yeah.
You always said bodybuilding was about self-mastery, about discipline, overcoming pain, and then later at the contest level, the desire not to eat.
Yeah, that was my spin on it. Anyway, everyone has got their own approach. Somebody else, a professional bodybuilder, might say, this is more of an art for me or whatever. But that was, for me, the biggest thing was it was a discipline. It was a personal challenge, and if you can overcome, if something's painful, you don't want to do it, right? But if you can overcome that, and if your body's telling you to eat, and you can discipline yourself to say, actually, no, I'm in control here, then other obstacles in life are not going to be so difficult when you come to face them. And if you want to achieve everything, the same kind of approach could work. If you're in a business, you need some strategy, some plan, with your business. It's the same. There's things that I learned, goal setting and so on. I learned from the sport. You can apply it to anything in life, really. You
said for 2 years you lived like a monk. Was that when you were at Casa Vale getting ready for that?
2 years I lived like a monk. I'd probably say more like the whole 12 years I was competing was living like a monk. Got a bit more relaxed, I suppose, because I had a family around me. I had my wife and my son and stuff when I was professional. We were living together, and I had more security like that. But was very disciplined, almost to the extreme that wasn't necessary, but I didn't know how to do it any other way, So I wouldn't go out. I wouldn't go to a movie if it meant I was going to get home after 11:30 because I need to get to bed at 12 and I need to eat at 11. And all these things, you know, everything had to work around. So it's almost like I was trying to create the perfect environment all the time for me to get the results from the training. And that's the thing with bodybuilding. It's not just the training when you go to the gym and then you can like, oh, let's forget about that when you go home. No, it's with you all the time because you've got to, you know, you've got to eat the right things at the right time, and you've got to eat very frequently, every 2.5 to 3 hours. You're going to have the required nutrition and so on. So it's like a real regime, and I kind of bent everything around that. You know, everything had to fit in with that.
And this is pre-internet, so all the information, like you said, it's copies of articles, it's old books, I mean, the strength of your career is probably based on the strength of your library to a certain extent.
Yeah, I had a lot of books, a lot of, you know, books on training. I had my books on nutrition with, you know, all the breakdowns of foods, protein, calorie intake and so on. So I was weighing my food and calculating the calories and the protein and the carb way before, like, many people were going to that extent. You know, people were just guesstimating or whatever, going by instinct. I didn't like to do that. I like to be very meticulous with the whole thing.
And same with your sleep schedule, that was all planned.
Yeah, it was all planned.
Did you plan naps and things
probably
like that?
A pretty boring guy to be around. I used to sleep 8 hours and 9 hours a night. I used to insist on having a nap every day after training for an hour and a half. And, you know, you got a family, everyone kind of has to like fit in with that schedule. But I could justify it, I guess, because this was my profession and this was bringing in, you know, we had a nice home and all these things that would have been out of reach to me, probably, right. You know, if I wasn't a professional bodybuilder. Like I said, you know, they say don't put all your eggs in one basket, but I only had one egg, one basket. So, you know, I did put everything into it.
And you become British champion in 83.
86, I was British champion, yeah.
And did you know that was going to happen? Was it?
Well, the big breakthrough came really earlier than that. My first contest I did after about 6 months training. So there's some early photographs of me with bushy
hair, yeah, I've seen those, yeah.
1980s hair.
And you're weighing what, 200 pounds?
Around 200 pounds. I just started, I think I'd done 6 months training, and the guy at the gym said, look, I'm doing a little inter-gym contest for all the gyms in the Birmingham area across the street. Why don't you enter the first timers? Like, you're looking great, you know? I'm like, it's not in my plan, you know? It's not in my plan.
It's too early for your plan.
Yeah, and I don't think I look good enough and everything. So thanks, but no, I don't think so. Anyway, I got sick. I got flu or something like that, and I was out for about a week, and I couldn't eat properly, and I was sweating. And I looked in the mirror, and I lost like, I don't know, 5 or 6 pounds, and I was looking shredded. I'm naturally lean anyway, so just that little bit, I was like, maybe I'll do that contest. Yeah, let's do it then, you know? I remember shaving, which was weird. And then I must have the whitest skin. My hair's almost going into red a little bit. So, you know, I got that skin that's just really, now it's totally different because I live in the sun and various things which we can discuss why I've got a color now and I couldn't get it for 20 years, which is interesting. But at that time I was like white like a milk bottle. And we had no professional tanning products. I just went to Boots, the chemist, you know, and they had this tanning mousse called Sudden Tan that ladies used to use on their legs or something like that. So I'm getting the sponge and putting all that on and thinking, wow, look how brown I am. Like, I look like a brown god, you know. And I see the pictures on stage, I was just still totally white, you know. So 6 months, I won the contest and I beat some guys that, you know, they've been around for a few years, right? So that was good. And then I went back to the drawing board and said, 1 year's time, I want to try to compete for the novice British Championship. Not the British Championship, but the novice one. Yeah, one step at a time. So I went to a qualifying contest in Morecambe in 1985. And the people that there, like, remember this day, the day that Dorian Yates, the star, was born. Because I went along there to the novice contest, and I remember being backstage looking around. He's pretty good, he's pretty good. I got a good chance. Like, I was just feeling like that, yeah. But when I see the pictures, there's no comparison. I walked on stage, did some poses, and when I came off, the head of the British Federation was there, who was a judge in the Mr. Olympia and very high up in the international bodybuilding community. And he's like, who the fuck are you? And where do you come from? And why are you doing, what are you in this contest for? I'm like, oh, I come from Birmingham. This is my first contest, so I'm in the novice contest, right? It's like, you should be in the heavyweight contest. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't think I was good enough for that. He's like, not good enough? Not good enough. He's like, you're probably the best heavyweight we've got in the whole country right now. It's like, this guy, he's joking, right? So they invited me to compete in the World Games, which coincidentally was being held the following weekend, which is a level of a world championship. So like, we went to come try out next weekend to be on the team for the World Games as a heavyweight. So I was a bit reluctant because, again, it was not in my master plan.
And your plan was meticulous, and you weren't in a rush, were you?
No, I wasn't in a rush, one thing at a time. But, you know, these guys were like very nice, and they were like, you know, Ron Davis was the guy's name, who was the head of the federation. He was a judge at the Mr. Olympia, and he was saying, look, you know, you're ready for this, you can do this, and you're gonna, you know, you can beat a lot of these guys that are pros. And so, okay, I went along to do the World Games, and I got 7th place there out of 13 guys. But these were the top amateurs in the world. So I finished in the middle of the pack after a year and a half's training, which was great. And I got that recognition, and you know that, yeah, you are doing the right thing, you are in the right place, you do have the potential. But on the other hand, I was very disappointed that I let myself being taken off track and put into a contest where I didn't feel I was really ready yet. You know, I wasn't really there to win. I remember when I was a kid, my mum, you know, we had the horses, and my mum used to take me to these gymkhanas, you know, like horse shows, and they have little competitions. And my horse was so slow that I always had no chance of winning. I always used to lose, and I just don't know, that stuck with me. Like, I'm like, we're not prepared properly, you know. We can't win in this situation, so that kind of stuck with me. So it was good, but at the same time, I was like, I've learned something, not to let anyone persuade me. I've got to go with my plan and my instincts and my things that I wanted to do. So the World Games was really a breakthrough, and they showed a little bit of it on TV at the opening ceremony. Okay. And at the opening ceremony, I was there with a girl called Della Shahabi. She was a British competitor. But we're there with a tracksuit top, and we took the bottoms off into the legs and did some posing. So of course, got all these sports there: water skiing, powerlifting, like loads of sports. World Games is like, it's like Olympic Games, but sports that haven't made it to the Olympic Games yet. Okay. So there's a lot of sports there, but nothing interesting visual going on at the opening ceremony apart from these people with the legs and the body. So all the TV cameras came over, and that got on TV, and a lot of people then recognized me, and I got my first paid guest appearance at a contest to fly to Northern Ireland. Some guys that had been at the World Games and saw me, and that's a guy with a low potential and probably pretty cheap as well at the time. So a few £100 in an air ticket, they got me over to Northern Ireland, and I did a guest posing there at a contest. That was the first time I did a guest posing, and the first time that I ever went on a commercial airplane was from my sport. You know? Your
sport. How'd that feel?
Feel great. And I didn't even have a car at the time. So, you know, looking back, I'm thinking, like, I didn't have anything, but it didn't bother me at all. I was just happy that I was just immersed in this goal, you know, all-consuming goal, and it was exciting. It was enjoyable.
Let me ask you a question. There's a movie called Senna that came out recently. It's about a Brazilian F1
Anton
racer.
Senna.
Yeah, did you see it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
There's a point at the end of the film, and it's a very interesting film because you kind of get to live his life in real time, right, by the footage and everything. And at the very end, there's a point where he says, you know, sometimes he used to miss back when he used to be a go-kart racer because there was no money, there was no politics, it was just pure competition.
Yeah.
And he missed that sometimes. I was wondering if did you ever miss it when you were in the 4th time, 5th time, 6th time Mr. Olympia? Did you ever miss like that?
No,
first
because
contest?
I didn't really change my approach or my attitude, and I isolated myself very much. I always thought, you know, if I became successful, if I became Mr. Olympia, I want to move to the States and move to California because that's where it's at, and that's what I read about when I was a kid, and that's what's inspired me, and Arnold on the beach with his girls and all this stuff, you know. So I thought that's where I'd want to be. But when I got successful, I realized if I was there would be a lot of pulls on my time, you know, a lot of pressure to go to this event and do this and do that. Whereas over in the UK, it's a lot more difficult to get hold of me and, you know, ask me to go to an event because I'm on the other side of the world. So there would have been a lot of distractions and a lot of pressures of me in the States. And I wanted to keep that, you know, Club Lang eye of the tiger. And, you know, I didn't want to get too comfortable. I didn't want to go to events with celebrities and all this kind of stuff. So I stayed in Birmingham where I was not accessible to do those kind of things, and where I could just be still almost religious about my training and regime and everything that got me to be at the top. Because there's the dilemma, you know, you do all this hard work to get to the top, and then when you get to the top, you get opportunities to make money, but it's going to take away from your time and dedication that you put in to get there. So it's a lot of people fall down on that, you know, amateur bodybuilders turn professional and then all of a sudden they're not so good anymore. Why? Because they've just got so many distractions. And now they're becoming successful, also get so many people in their ear telling them, oh, you should have done this and you should train like this and you should have done that. And then they forgot just basic hard work that got them there in the first place, probably. So
now all the magazines...
I isolated myself, and that also had no strategy about the way I did things. It was just me being me, but it almost could have been a strategy because it worked out, you know, the whole shadow mystique, inaccessible guy from across the water, the only monster that only comes out now and
Can
then.
we talk about your nickname?
Roll up, buy your ticket. You know, like every show I went to in America, and I can still speak to the promoters now, 20 years later, they say they've never seen anything like it. They would sell out their shows immediately when people knew I was there. There was no internet to see me in the flesh, to see me or to talk to me or have access or anything like that. So when you turned up at a show those days, there was a huge demand for everybody, but I was number one because I was so inaccessible and so different, and the physique that had changed the sport and everything like that. So
where did that nickname come from? Do you remember who
the
first
shadow?
gave it? Yeah.
The shadow was coined by Peter McGough, who's an author, the first guy to ever do an interview with me. Outside the contest, the first contest I did in Morecambe, I got my trophy for winning my class and everything. I remember going outside with my girlfriend at the time, and I didn't have a car, as I said. So my friend, who coincidentally was in the detention centre with me, we used to train together in there. When he came out, he carried on training, and I carried on training in our separate gyms and everything. But he rented a car. So he rented a car to drive me up to the contest. So I was actually going outside to put the trophy in the rented car. And Peter McGough followed me out. He was writing for a British magazine, I think it was Muscle & Co. or something at the time. And he wanted to interview me, and I was like, he said, the look on your face when I asked you to interview was like total, like, what the fuck, why, you know? So that was my first interview I did with Peter McGough. And he's the guy, and then Peter McGough, coincidentally, his writing career almost went parallel with my bodybuilding career. He ended up being the editor of Flex magazine in California, which is the biggest bodybuilding magazine in the world, and very respected in the sport for his writing and for his knowledge and everything. So Peter is the one that coined the shadow, because he's like, this guy, he comes out of his gym in Birmingham, goes to a contest, devastates everybody, is like the opposite, the anti-bodybuilder, because he's not an extrovert, he doesn't tell everybody how great he is all the time, all this stuff that people expect. He just goes to the contest, win it, and disappear, and everyone's like, who's that guy, where's he come from? All this enigma, and then disappears in his gym for another year or 2 years and just trains and doesn't let anyone see him because he's got sweatshirt on all the time, and then pops up again and just blows everyone's mind and disappears again, like a shadow. So that's where it comes from. And there's a funny thing, because I had a pony when I was a kid and his name was Shadow. And obviously he didn't know that. So little coincidence that you get in life.
And it was never a plan of yours to kind of be that guy, but that was you. So
it's never my plan to be that guy. I was just me being me, which I find always works out for me. People appreciate that. And when I went to California and I won my first pro show, and I was flown out to California by Joe Weider to do the photo shoots for the magazines and everything. First of all, they asked me to wear sunglasses, and they wanted to spray this water bottle on me so it looks like I'm sweaty, and take pictures and pose and hold the weight. And I'm like, this is bullshit. I don't train like this. I don't wear sunglasses. Yeah, but we want it. It's like what they want. I said, how about we do something different? How about I lift that fucking 200-pound dumbbell and you get a picture of that? Can you do that? I'm like, yeah, I can do it, but I can't do it and hold it. And you got to get this shot. And that was my first front cover, that shot. 200-pound dumbbell. I'm doing a one-arm row in Gold's Gym. all the veins coming out of my neck and everything, because I am actually lifting a 200-pound dumbbell. That's what it looks like when you lift. But people saw that shot and they know it's real, and they feel inspired and they get energy from that shot. And that, from then on, pretty much it just changed the way that people did things. They wanted to shoot you with real weights in the gym now, in black and white and real grainy stuff. And I did my training video, Blood and Guts. And I was the first one to film a real, genuine, fly on the wall, hardcore, no shit training. Why? Because I'm a fan. I was a fan, or I am a fan of bodybuilding. And I read every magazine, I watched every video, everything, trust me. And I used to watch the guys training on these training videos and getting ready for the Olympia or whatever. And I was like, this is bullshit. Like, they're just not inspiring me. Surely they don't train like this. And what I noticed was when I tried to do it, you get a video production company and they want to shoot a professional video from their point of view. So they want the correct angles, they want the correct lighting, all that. That's what they're concerned with, because that's their job. Well, I said that nobody cares about that, yeah? They want to see the action. They want to see how much weights I'm lifting. They want to see the effort that goes into it. So I got a friend of mine to rent a film camera. I said, right, I want you to film me. Don't ever talk to me. Just be there. Yeah, try to get the weights in the shot so people can see how much weights I'm lifting. But apart from that, just get it in there. And don't worry about the angle and all this stuff, because I don't think it's important. I want the energy. I want to capture the during the workout. So I'm really glad I did, because obviously I don't lift those kind of weights anymore. So it's there recorded for history, and it's got to be the most popular training video, and now it's on DVD that's been made in the sport, because it's real.
Filmed? When was that filmed?
It was filmed in '96
96,
in Temple Gym, yeah.
When I watch Blood and Guts, I see a man putting in work. I mean, it is just work. It is relentless work. It's unglamorous. You are just piling the weights on and doing all the things that you do. And it's fascinating to watch. This is before reality TV.
Yeah.
That is reality TV.
And it's, you know, that's a result of a preparation as well. Before I went to the gym, I'd do like a rehearsal almost. So I'd sit down with my diary of what I did last time. So I did X 200 for 8 last time, and now I just visualize myself at the gym and like breaking that 8, getting the 9 or whatever. And the whole thing, I would just like kind of play it through my mind first and record it. And then when I was going to the gym, I was almost like in a trance. Like nobody could ever talk to me because I was not there. I purposely wouldn't make eye contact with anybody anyway, because I didn't want to be just in my own world. So between the sets, I just mainly like look at the floor or talk to my, training partner, how much weight, not like what did you do last night or anything like that. There's none of that. After training, yes, but not before or not during. Like we got there and we're in the zone, do the job. And it's not just, I'm lifting heavy weights, but it's not just lifting heavy weights. It's almost an art form of how to lift them, to put the maximum stress on the muscle. A bodybuilder is the opposite to a weightlifter or a powerlifter. Their job is to get the weight from A to B, however they can. Using as many muscle groups, using as much momentum and body movement, whatever it takes to get that weight. With a bodybuilder, you've got to eliminate all those things. You've got to try to put maximum stress on whichever muscle it is that you're trying to isolate and trying to work. So there's a real mental aspect to that, And
is that part of your HIT, high intensity training? If you're only going in for an hour, maybe less than an hour, you have to have it all focused in your head because you don't want to take 2 hours. Matter of fact, that's counterproductive.
Exactly, and you can't train like with super intensity and focus for very long. It's Mike Mensa, who was, one of the predecessors to me with this kind of training, used to say, well, if I say to you to go outside and sprint, how long are you going to sprint for before it turns into a semi-jog? You can't sprint for very long. You can't go all out for very long. It's the same thing with the weights. You can't give all out effort for very long. So probably 40, 45 minutes was the average for my workouts 4 times a week.
And they're all mentally rehearsed before you get in
all
there.
Mentally rehearsed, and I know the function of the muscle. I can visualize the fibers. I'm almost within the muscle when I'm doing it.
Were you doing that from the beginning, trying to think about the fibers and think about...
Absolutely, yeah. Control the weights on all aspects of the, lifting the weight, the positive, lowering the weight, the negatives, and exhaust all those phases of the muscle.
Right.
So yeah, I'm actually doing a certification now for personal trainers. So they come and train with me, and they get all these points we go over, so that my training methods are translated correctly.
Because like you said, bodybuilding is different than powerlifting, and it's different from weightlifting, as in you're thinking about the best way to stress that fiber.
Exactly. If you do a bench press as a powerlifter, you bring the bar down to your chest and you're going to get it back up to there. So first of all, you can arch your back to reduce the range of motion. You can bring, bring your back into it. You can have a wider grip. Various things you can do to try and get that weight from A to B. If you're doing it as a bodybuilder, you're trying to use your pecs as much as you can. So it's a different movement. You come up probably a bit higher on the chest, probably narrower grip, more control on the way down, and focusing on the pec and, trying to isolate the other muscle groups. So it's more of an art form in bodybuilding, which may not come across when you watch the video. But if you watch the body positioning and the lack of movement and stuff, then you'll probably see it.
They're intense videos. I'm glad you recorded them.
Yeah, me too, because otherwise I'll be telling stories to my kids and my grandkids about the weights I used to lift. And I've got proof now,
Talk to me about the Americans. I mean, obviously they were always in the magazines. You were seeing the Gold's Gym and the guys in Venice. But the first time you went to compete in America, you went to New York City. I just wanted to know what you thought of the Americans. What are the guys in the gyms in Birmingham were talking about the Americans? Yeah. What did they tell you it was going to be like to compete with them?
The Americans. The Americans. People used to talk to me about the Americans as if they had 4 legs and 4 arms or something. I'm like, okay, they've got better gyms over there, access to better food, and there's more people lifting weights. That's the big thing. People don't realize, maybe in the States, that most of your schools or colleges would have a weight room. Am I correct?
Yeah, they would.
No school in England has a weight room. You're not going to be introduced to weights at school. You're going to have to decide for yourself, I would like to do weights, and where is there a gym, and let me find out, and go to the gym and find out about this. So it's not something you stumble across at school while you're playing football or basketball or baseball or track and field or whatever, and you do weight. So it's fair to say that a lot of people that go to school or college in the States, they have done weights at some point. For whatever reason, they've been introduced to those weights. So you've got just a bigger pool to pull from. Plus the whole sport was based in America, mainly in California because of the Weeders, the Weeder magazine, Flex, Muscle Builder, all that stuff, and Arnold and Pumping Iron and so on, So somehow the Americans had a mythical status. And of course there was no internet, so if there was it used to be a circuit, of people coming to do seminars. Seminars were very big, so you get to see the guy, hear him speak. Just to hear them speak was worth the price of the ticket, because these guys are from magazines. They're like mythical guys, Here he really is now, and he's talking, and then you can ask questions. You have a Q&A, and then at the end the guy will, come out and do his posing. So that was very popular. And people are, I don't know if you can beat the Americans, though. That was at first. And then, when I won the British Championship the second time, 88, and just really walked there and took the championship, people started to recognize that maybe I'll be good enough as a pro. But there's still a lot of negativity about, especially before Night of Champions, because I had no publicity,
Right.
And they said that's going to affect me negatively because everyone's influenced by publicity. Even the judges, they're going to be looking for Eddie Robinson and people like this that had a lot of hype in the magazines, so they're going to have an advantage over you. And you don't know any of the judges, and you don't know the right people, and no. I said, I'm not going to listen to this. I'm just going to train so hard, and I'm going to be that good that I can't be ignored. So I'm just not going to listen to that. I'll do my best. So I went to New York, which was a huge thing for me. First time in the States, and bam, into New York and Manhattan, and walking around like this with the skyscrapers. Because I've seen this on TV before. Is this real or am I on TV? In New York. And then Night of the Champions, I went there, and a lot of the top pros were there, and they all knew each other and everything. So it was, I just feel like a bit of an outsider as well. And New York is New York, right? And I heard that the crowd at the Night of Champions were typical New York, very vocal. And if they like you, they're going to let you know. If they don't like you, they're going to let you know. So I didn't really know what to expect from the crowd there, you know. The English crowds are pretty boisterous, but I heard the New York was like, you know, it was the one. So I went there, and I think some went around the audience, like, who's this guy? Number whatever, I can't remember what number I was, but I don't know how much it was into the contest that the whole crowd just started chanting, Dorian, Dorian, Dorian. So I was like, yeah, I don't need to worry about the New York crowd then. I guess they're behind me now. And New York became my second home, because later on I met some very good friends, Bev Francis, Steve Weinberger. Bev Francis was an athlete from Australia. She competed in the Miss Olympia and so on. They had a big gym in New York, so I became friends with them. And that was my base then for all my things I did in the States. It was not California, which is the usual base.
Okay.
I based myself in New York, and I felt more comfortable in New York. You know, like New York's more like, I don't know, the guys in New York, the gyms in New York and New Jersey and Boston, the whole East Coast were much more hardcore and blue collar, more like the British bodybuilders, I think.
Were you something special that night for that contest in New York? If you look back at what you looked like, were you really kind of coming into your own?
I was, yeah, but I had a pretty traumatic week before the contest, and which was usual for me, that I overdid everything. So I was probably in great shape 4 or 5 weeks out before that contest, and I kept dieting because I wanted to get leaner. And then I got in New York, and it was quite stressful. I didn't know anything, didn't know anybody in New York. So I asked the British Federation, you know, where do I stay? Where do I train? Like, well, New York. So they got in touch with the contest promoter. And I guess that he had gone into some local gym, not having much respect for British bodybuilders, because we never did anything up until that point. So, this guy from England wants to come over, and they've called me to find somebody to look after him. So I went to some local gym and probably, hey, some guy at bodybuilder, who wants to put him up? I will. So we went to, me and my wife arrived 3 in the morning, and we went to this apartment, this guy, that not that I had any problem with it, but he was clearly gay, and a lot of gay pictures on the wall. And then there was like a little camp bed on the floor somewhere or something. And I'm like, man, I can't stay here. I'm very sorry, but you need to get me a hotel right now, you know? So that was like, oh my God, you know, I've been preparing for this contest for months, and now I'm here, and now I don't have anywhere to stay and cook my food and everything. But eventually we got the Chelsea Hotel in New York, and I stayed there. And then when I was there, it twigged on me that this is where Sid Vicious stayed and murdered his girlfriend. I was like, wow, this is a coincidence, you know? So the whole week was interesting, but very stressful, which meant I lost even more weight than I should have done. So I was below my weight because of, you know, doing too much. So I remember I was very lean, very shredded, but I'd gone down below my ideal weight. But I got pretty close second to Mohammed Benaziza, that was a great professional at the time, and I made an impact, you know. The crowd were behind me more than the other guy, because I was new out of anywhere, and I think because of my stage presentation and my physique and everything, it was quite aggressive, and maybe that went well with the New York crowd, you know. But it was very encouraging, and I don't know if I told anybody, but I told myself if I didn't place in the top 5 in that contest, I wouldn't compete again, because it wouldn't be worth all that absolute focus and dedication that I was giving to the neglect of mostly everything else. I couldn't justify it anymore, because I would say, if I can't make the top 5 and I've given it my best shot, then that tells me I'm not good enough to really do this, yeah? And there's a lot of people that were hanging around that were in that situation, you know?
Right, you didn't want to be on the pony again.
No, because they're not making a living really, they're just getting by, and you know, you're living this, your family's kind of suffering because your time and your emotions are not there, because it's all into this sport, you know? You're restricting yourself from many opportunities. Like I had a gym, and I decided if I didn't have a future in the professional competitions, I will open another gym. or maybe another gym. I'll have my time and focus to do that. I can do anything I want. And I've already proven that by doing this. So I can transfer that effort to something else. So that would have been the route that I took. And Dorian Yates, Mr. Olympia, never would have existed if I hadn't got top 5 in that contest. So fortunately, I got second. And I got flown out to California for the Joe Weider's Flex magazine, which is every bodybuilder's dream at that time.
Is that when you did the 200?
Yeah, I did that first.
And you said you probably ushered in a new way of people looking at bodybuilders. I mean, kind of more of a blue collar, or guys, working, as opposed to being sunglasses and Arnold on the beach type.
Well, the thing is, really, that was an illusion that was being sold, that was being marketed. Look, hey, get your protein shake and be on the beach with these girls, but it didn't really exist. Nobody was really doing. Maybe Arnold and a couple of guys got time to go sit on the beach, but in the 70s,
the movie they do, right?
Yeah, in the movies, but in the 70s, there's no contest prize money, there's no sponsorship deals, so how the hell are you going to do that, sit on the beach? So perhaps it did exist in California, but California is not everywhere. The majority of guys that were lifting weights all around the world were just working class, blue collar guys like me. They didn't live in the sun. They didn't wear sunglasses when they trained. They trained in some dank gymnasium, and they're lifting heavy weights with 2 sweatshirts on in the winter with their mates. So when I came and I was genuine with what I was doing, and with the video and with the photos and everything, they're like, wow, this guy is one of us. We can relate to that. So that's why I think that I was so popular, because I offered an alternative. Where before, you got Sean Ray, and these guys always out in California driving a Corvette by the beach, and it's nice, yeah, it's great, but we're not from there. We're not doing that. So it was almost like, this guy's like us. So people felt a bond with me.
Mm. At the time, Lee Haney is Mr. Olympia,
yeah,
which he held for 8 years. Were you thinking at that time in New York that I got to start thinking about Lee?
Well, there's a thing. Lee Haney was Mr. Olympia the first time in 1984. I started training in 1983. So Lee Haney had been Mr. Olympia pretty much for the whole time that I've been training and climbing up and everything. And so he's the icon in the sport. And he had a good shape, but he was a lot bigger than all the other guys. That was his thing. He overpowered them, right? And by the time I got second in the first night of champions. And then I came back the following year and I won that outright. And I'd improved. And then people and myself were thinking, I could maybe take this guy, And I had to change my mental approach from, wow, it's Lee Haney's Mr. Olympia, to like, no, hold on. It's 2 arms, 2 legs, lifts weights. And one thing I can guarantee, he does not train as hard as me. He does not dedicate himself as much as me. How do I know that? Because it's not possible. It's not possible to be training harder or more consistently or more dedicated than me, because I couldn't give a single ounce more to any aspect of this thing that I'm doing. So that makes me feel pretty powerful and pretty confident.
To watch the rest of this fascinating interview, click on the link below and go to LondonRealAcademy.com. There you can sign in with your social media, log in and watch the rest of the episode for free, along with all of our episodes on London Real, my webinars, and all of our premium content, all located over at LondonRealAcademy.com. So click on the link below, you'll be directed there, and you can watch the rest of this fascinating interview, and I'll see you there. Hi, it's Brian Rose from London Real. You probably know that we've just recently been re-platformed on YouTube after 25 months completely in the dark. The truth is, I really need your help. What I really need you to do is click on that subscribe button right now, like this video, and maybe even leave a comment or share the link with friends.
We're really fighting against an algorithm that's tried to keep us quiet for so long. And the more subscribers we have, the more people watch our content, the better guests we can bring you, the better content, and we can continue transforming lives. We've been doing this for 14 years now. I want to do this for another 14 years, but I really need your help. So click on that subscribe button, like the video, leave a comment, share this, and we're going to continue to bring you more and more great content. Thank you. Most people will never see this opportunity. Dubai luxury transformation projects have historically delivered 40 to 90% annual returns. That is incredible. These were once reserved only for insiders with access. I spent 15 years on Wall Street and I learned this. The biggest returns always go to the people who get the call first. Now, you finally can. We've just received a brand new project with major upside potential. Allocations move fast. Click the link, apply now, and speak to my team. This is your chance to see what others never will.